Why don't you tell people, how did you get your start in the industry? I see you started, like, what, at 14, 15?
Yeah, my dad was a disc jockey. So my start actually was he had a background of being a DJ, and he was in the service in the Army. So we always had music around the house. And I actually just kind of took a liking to watching him do his job and checking him out. And I learned a whole lot just from, him doing what he did, which was, of course, make people dance, make people move. Of course, he had every album you could think of, every song you could think of. He was very, very into collecting old records when vinyl was the thing to do. And that was kind of what kicked it off. That was what gave me that foundation of, even at 14, of even having a desire to just kind of see what it was like to just make one of these songs. We had all these records in our house, walls and walls of records, and it just kind of came natural at a certain point,
Listening to you talk about your father and his collection, and I can only imagine because, like, man, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, those were, like, classics. It seems like almost every release that came out that was really, really pushed, you know what I'm saying, was a classic. Every single was a classic. Whereas now today we have to dig through releases for that hit single, when back then we had classic albums.
Yeah, and that's true. Yeah, and I messed up. I ain't gonna lie. I listened to every single album in his collection, and I had my share. I was a kid, so I was listening to albums and had scratches on records and was listening to vinyl and leaving records out. So I kind of learned pretty early that, some of those albums did have a lot of value, So, of course, I did learn to kind of keep my discipline straight. But it was kind of interesting to go through, being like 10 years old and having 20 records just out of the cases and the cases all mixed matched. And he's like going crazy. What are you doing? So, so it was definitely lessons that I learned early. By the time I was about 13 or 14, then I'd had it all kind of straightened out,
Well, it's like you don't know that you're dealing with diamonds. You don't know diamonds exist. You don't know that these are like gems. You just take it for granted. But, I mean, it all turned out well for you. And you went on to become a very successful producer. For people who don't know, you're part of the whole St. Louis explosion, that happened in the 2000s. Actually, you produced my favorite song by Nelly, which is Batter Up. Dude, I love that.
That is true. Yeah,
I love that.